What's up, Dolphins? I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. The Tua era is over. The Malik Willis era reportedly just going to get started with the Miami Dolphins. The squad breaks it down for you tonight on your Dolphin Squad Show.
Hey, I'm Jeff Zgonina. Happy Monday. And the free agency frenzy has started, and people are getting paid.
Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins. I think this is going to be my 5th hour of recording in front of a camera today, and excited to share it instead of monologuing like I've done with all the other ones.
Fins up. It's the Dolphin Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphin Squad Show starts now.
On the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network, number 10 channel. Kyle Krabs has most of the work done in that regard, and man, oh man, he just said it. Busy times for you, Kyle, and when QB1 hits the door, that'll happen. A lot of things going on in Dolphin land. How you holding up?
It's been a long day, and I'm sure it'll be another long day again tomorrow, but that's the blessing that comes with working in the news industry and working in football, right? So as business picks up, so do we.
Z, you talked about people getting paid, and you talked about that in the open of the show. It's always an exciting time for players when that money starts flying around.
Oh, God, yeah, especially that guaranteed money. I've seen some good contracts, some guys I've coached getting good contracts, and teams getting better, or hopefully getting better, with all this movement. And we'll just see how it pans out over the next week or so.
With Tua reportedly being cut, Kyle, and Malik Willis on the way in, Minkah Fitzpatrick traded, all kinds of things going on in Dolphin land, and we'll get to them on the show. But obviously the big news is Tua, right? All those hopes, all those dreams, all those expectations that, crashed and burned these last couple of years. It's over now. They're going to take the hit. They're going to move on. And they're looking like they're going to move on with Malik Willis. This is something we talked about a lot on the show, although we thought for a while there that Willis might have been priced out of the Dolphins' range. And, it looks like that's not the case.
Yeah, I think that was the most surprising thing about the Willis deal was not that they agreed to terms with Malik Willis. It's where the annual average came in at relative to what kind of the drumbeat for the last 2 months has felt like it had said, which is, every time you heard it, it was $3 million more than it was the time before they talked about it on the network TV. It got up to pushing 35, 40 million annually at one point. And it's like, yeah, that's not a cost-effective swing, right? And for it to come in at 22.5, it's pretty much the Justin Fields contract last year with the Jets adjusted for inflation with an extra year tacked on the back of it with no guarantee money on it. So I do think it is a cost-effective swing, and for that reason, I really, really like the move. I know there's some Dolphins fans that the frame of mind is, just build up the rest of the team, don't invest in a quarterback, wait till next year. If one's there next year, they're probably going to take him too, right? That is the very first thing John Eric Sullivan said when he was introduced to the Dolphins fan base in his interviews was, none of it matters if you don't have a quarterback. And they said, we're going to continue to invest in quarterback. And even if we have one, we're going to keep investing in quarterback. So I think the trust issues that Dolphins fans have had from seeing how the team has been running years past, and Tua with no real competition and Ryan Tannehill had no real competition. I think that kind of breeds the expectation that's the last 10 plus years of this franchise. And I think they're going to have a different school of thought. And as long as they follow through with that, then I'm totally fine with a cost-effective swing for Malik Willis to get things kicked off.
Yeah, and I wish I had the recording, Z. I'm throwing to you, buddy, because Kyle nailed this. He said if it's in this price range, he wants them, and it's in that range.
No, I think it's a perfect contract for the Dolphins. Being that third year is not guaranteed. So they can get off the hook, if it doesn't pan out, and what are they getting paid this year? One something, I think, is only the contract value. Well, and I get it. He's still got, guaranteed monies and all that, but it's really a 2-year deal with an option. That's how I view it. They're still going to go out and draft a quarterback probably this year and probably next year.
Yep.
So, to me, it's a win-win for the Dolphins right now. They got a stopgap guy who knows, could end up really lighting it up, and maybe they don't go get a quarterback next year. Maybe this is the guy, but at least they have an out of this contract early, and they don't have to sit there with a lot of dead money like we are right now.
And Kyle, Malik Willis had a lot of success in Green Bay in a very limited window, right? We're talking 70 of 89 passes in 3 games over the last 2 years, 972 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks. And that'll be nice for Dolphins fans to not see their quarterback throwing the ball to the other team, because Tua led the league this past year. But 3 years, $67.5 million for Willis, Kyle. And I want to wet everybody's whistle on that one. But before we turn the page, Bob Seger, before we do that, let's put a bow on Tua's career in Miami. 6 years, up and down, been a great guy off the field, in the community, very classy with the post, saying goodbye to the fans. A lot of the fans sending him love on the way out, and many, many more, calling him a thief and a criminal. Thanks for stealing the money, all that stuff. But, the money that he earned to get that contract, he earned it with his play on the field. Nobody was complaining about the deal at the time. Obviously, everyone feels differently now, Kyle, but just in a quick synopsis from you, the Tua Tagovailoa era on your perspective.
I think when you put it through the context of the other quarterbacks that were in that class, you get a mulligan, you're taking one, right? Because this is with Burrow, obviously, and he was off the board, and Tua went to, and it was Herbert, and then Jordan Love, his first round guys, and Jalen Hurts in the second round, right? Like, out of that group of 5, that's a great pack of quarterbacks, and Tua had his high moments, but he's going to no longer be with the team that drafted him out of that class, and he's the first one that we can say that about. So I certainly think if you could go back and look at it, you do it differently. But I'm also sympathetic to the problems that the Dolphins organization seem to have on not being on the same page with Chris Greer and Brian Flores, and who to draft and what quarterback to pick. And they land on Tua. And then what happened afterwards, where Flores couldn't really build an offensive staff. They did the whole flirtation thing with Deshaun Watson for the entire half of a year before Flores got dismissed at the end of the 2021 season. And they were horrible that year. And the reported altercation in the locker room in week 17. And then the subsequent coaching hire was to undo all of the damage that was done in the first 2 years of Tua's career. It just underscores to me, Tua is the embodiment, how the experience went when you look at what his early career was like, what the team did to try to undo some of those wounds, and then even the decision to draft him and how it was a split room at the time on making that decision. You got to have your folks in line. You got to have your folks on the same page. And whether or not this build of the Dolphins regime works or not, that's the pendulum swing that goes the other way for me, because some people are kind of thumbing their nose at, Packers South, it's not funny. All these guys, Green Bay, just buddies, whatever. If they're on the same page, that automatically for me is a step in the right direction versus what went wrong that Tua, I think, embodied a lot of. And then they spent 6 years trying to untangle that web. And the deeper in you got, the more complicated it got. And now we wake up on Monday, March 9th, and we get the news in the morning that Tua is out after 6 years in Miami.
That's a great job, Kyle. And I know, Z, that we've obviously, since we started this show, which was during this past season, haven't had a lot of good things to say about Tua. I did the postcast the year before, tough with the injuries, the concussion in the hip, that, a lot of people think he's a shot fighter, so to speak, because of that. But, word is he's going to Atlanta, and we'll touch on that in just a minute. It's not a Falcon show, it's a Dolphin show. But your thoughts on the Tua era in Miami, because Z, I would say he's been the Dolphins' best quarterback since Dan Marino. That's not saying a ton, but I think it's true.
I mean, he could be. I mean, he did some good things. He had some good years here, I mean, it didn't, it fizzled out at the end. Again, like you said about people are getting mad about his contract. He didn't beg for that. He asked for it or negotiated for it, and they gave it to him. So if you're mad at somebody, mad at who gave it to him, the owner, the old GM, that's who gave him the contract. That's always gets me upset with, being an ex-player and seeing like fans get mad at players for what they're making. Again, we're not walking in there with a gun and saying, hey, we want this money. We demand this money. Yeah, we say we ask for it. But at the end of the day, if we get it, we get it. It's not our, again, we're not stealing it. They're giving it to us. And that, it rubbed me the wrong way. It frustrates me when fans say that about players, what they're making in all sports. Again, someone's giving it to us. We ask for it. Our agents ask for it. We negotiate it when we get it. Again, they can easily say no and let us walk. They can easily do that.
Someone in the chat wrote Hawk Tua. It's kind of funny. Really, Falcon Tua. Now, you get the joke, Hawk Tua, but the Falcons got themselves a pretty good QB for that dome, Kyle. Michael Penix Jr., they don't know about the injury coming back. Couple of lefties in that room now in Atlanta, but it really is the perfect landing spot for Tua leaving Miami.
I think so. It's obviously you play half your games automatically indoors. Your division doesn't have a single team north of the Mason-Dixon line for the concerns about the cold weather, this, that, and the other thing. The group around him, when you consider Stefanski is off of a branch of a West Coast offense for what he runs, the skill group there has Kyle Pitts, Drake London. It's got Bijan Robinson to go with a pretty good offensive line. They got to figure out that right tackle long-term. Kalen McGarry's had some injuries there, but you think about when Tua's been at his best, it's been a good supporting cast around him and a timing-based offense. Well, he's going to have a good supporting cast around him and a timing-based offense. So I do think he's going to have, especially because I have had my doubts about Michael Penix going back to when they drafted him 8th overall, was a really tough eval and got comps to like stronger arm Tua because he was a lefty. And I think Tua plays, I think, with a lot more feel. Now, he didn't last year. And that's the big mystery is like, was the ways in which he regressed last year, was that a bump in the road or was that kind of the new normal and the baseline for Tua? And if that's the new normal and the baseline for Tua, I won't like his chances to beat out Michael Penix because I think Penix has more to draw on from an arm talent perspective. But if Tua can recapture that rhythm and that feel that helped to get him to the point where he earned the contract that the Dolphins gave him, then I would like his chances overwhelmingly to beat out Michael Penix for the starting job. And I think that's going to be a really interesting storyline to watch and see if he's able to get his feet up under him or not. Because if he does, I think he can win that starting job.
He played great in Atlanta, Z, when the Dolphins had that shock win mid-season against the Falcons. That was maybe Tua's best game of the year.
Yeah, no, it's a great fit for him in Atlanta. He's got a good running game. He's got a big tight end. Similar to like Waller. Tua and Waller hooked up. When they were on the field together and did some good things. And he's got Kyle Pitts. Up there in Atlanta. So I think it's a good fit for him if he gets into games. Depending if he beats out Penix or not, or if Penix gets hurt again or is not coming back from his injury yet, he's got a chance. So I think it's good things for him to rebound his career up there.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get a chance, in the offseason, things like that, moving into camp, starting in camp with Penix coming back from that injury. So we'll keep an eye on that. And I'm with Z. I don't want to, it doesn't need to be repeated, but I think that's great that you said that, buddy, about the fans with the players. I mean, the teams are paying them. It's supply and demand. Everybody bitches about how much things cost, but if people stop paying it, it wouldn't be that much. You know what I mean? But you're not going to stop buying your Benzes and Beamers, are you? And your Rolls Royces and your Bentleys? Nope, you're not. You're just going to complain about how much they cost and how much it drags up the prices on the rest of us. But guys, real quick before we hit the break, got a couple of minutes here. Malik Willis, it's kind of funny watching his interview with Pat McAfee. He says, hey, he calls him Half and Sully. We're talking about Jeff Hafley and John Eric Sullivan, Kyle. When your new QB1 is referring to your head coach and your general manager as Half and Sully, I'm loving that already.
Yeah, I think that honestly, the thing that I loved the most about it was they were trying to get him for his interview, and he was out on the practice field getting his training and workout in, and then he calls in on his phone, and he's drenched with sweat because he just got done his workout to do the call with Pat McAfee. And look, for what this Dolphins team needs, for kind of the edge that you're hoping that they have, and I know that perception around Tua about what happened after he got paid, and this is a guy that's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and certainly seems like that's going to continue to still be the case even after getting the 3-year contract that the Dolphins have agreed to terms to give him. So that was the part to me that really gassed me up about the Malik Willis interview on McAfee. It was like, heck yeah, I'm glad to see that you're out there on the practice field getting a big time workout in and prepping for this opportunity, because I hope he takes advantage of it. And everybody who's a fan of the Dolphins should be rooting for him to take advantage of it, because it would mean you've got a cost-effective starting quarterback for the next 3 seasons if it works out.
Z, from a player's standpoint, you're in that locker room. You got to love it when QB1 is literally on the practice field and having to be dragged off to do the interview about signing. So you got to love that right there, the commitment, that dedication if you're a teammate.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Because I'm hoping that teammates out somewhere getting a workout in, even though it's early March. But it's about the time when the guys start getting back in and start working out. So you like guys that are going to work, who want to work and want to come in, and you want guys who are still a little bit of the underdog, which he kind of is. He had a rough go at it. Coming out of college, he didn't do well at Tennessee. And then he was a backup up there in Green Bay and got when he was in, he played well, but now he's got the full tilt in QB1. It's a little different. The pressure's a little different week in and week out on you, and I hope he performs well.
That's Jeff Zgonina, former Miami Dolphin. That's Kyle Krabs all the way on the right. Locked On Dolphins podcast. Been really busy, Kyle, this week. We haven't talked about a lot of the other things that are going on with the Miami Dolphins yet. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. We're going to take a quick break, come back and keep it going. But before we do go to break, we'll see if my eyesight fails me here. I might need to throw on the glasses. But, with Tua hitting the door, I just want to make sure I say, as he exits, 44-32, 78 total games, 18,166 yards, 120 touchdowns, and let's see, that's 59 picks with a 68% completion rate and a 96.4 passer rating. But the playoff success not there, and no real success after he signed the big contract. So we wish Tua well, and we welcome Malik Willis to the Dolphins. More on the Dolphins QB1 coming your way after the break, and of course a lot more happening with the Miami Dolphins. Minkah Fitzpatrick is gone as well, and so many other things. We will keep it moving right here on your Dolphin Squad Show. We live in a world where we can stream anything. We can order food in minutes and carry supercomputers in our pockets. Somehow, buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There has to be a better way. That's why I use the GameTime app. And if you don't, you need to join me there. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple, whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. Man, you just jump on the app, check out tickets for an upcoming game. It just takes you minutes. That's it. You can see panoramic views from every seat before you buy, see what you're going to see before you see it. Don't you wish you could do everything in life that way? And the picks are real, unlike a lot of other life scenarios, right? The price you see includes all fees, no surprises at buyout. You can even spot zone deals. You pick the section, GameTime picks the seat for extra savings. 2 taps, and you have great seats locked in. Fast, easy, done with GameTime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the GameTime app today. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's right. Terms apply, like always. But again, you create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download GameTime today on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Z Kyle, I'm Gries. We talked a little bit about Malik Willis coming in the previous segment. Tua Tagovailoa hitting the door as the Dolphins have a new QB1. And I want to start it this way with you, Z. I mean, when you have a guy like Hafley coming in, and we've talked about it from the start, he's a teacher, right? He's bringing a lot of people over from Green Bay. John Eric Sullivan, of course, coming first. And these guys know Malik Willis as well as anyone. They love Malik Willis. And the one thing that I've really seen over and over again since the signing and everything I've read is that Hafley was literally telling anyone who would listen every day that he wants Malik Willis. Well, he's got him.
Well, yeah. I mean, but what I'm really excited about is what Bobby Slowik's going to do with this kid. I think Bobby's going to have another breakout year like his first year down in Houston, with CJ. I think that, this quarterback fits what Bobby wants to do and how Bobby wants to run this offense. And that's, going to be great for Haf. Because Haf's can deal mostly with the defense. He's still going to have his thumb on the offense, but he's trusting Bobby to run it. And I think Bobby's going to do great things with this kid, and I think he's going to light it up, and it's going to be a good offense.
What about you, Kyle? You excited as he is to see him with Bobby Slowik in that system?
Yeah, I think the skill group will benefit from this as well. Where a lot of Malik's completions, he had a lot of success throwing outside the numbers. He had a lot of success driving the ball to the field and pushing the ball down the field, 15 plus yards, where the last 2 seasons that really hasn't been a thing. And when Bobby was in Houston and had the really successful season with CJ Stroud, they did a lot of middle of the field type stuff. But then if you're going to go into the run game and the rollouts and kind of get the quarterback out on the edges, being able to throw the ball outside the numbers and take advantage and make quick decisions. If you've got a high-low opportunity on a corner and you see it quick and you can't drive that throw to take it and slot it behind him, that window can close fast, or that corner is going to sink and it's going to take that away. And I think for what the Dolphins can be with the group that they have with HN and Waddle, like, I think you can have a lot of outbreaking patterns that win that we haven't seen them throw a lot because it hasn't been the sweet spot of where the quarterback that was here thrives. So I think, it's going to look dramatically different. And for Malik and his skill set to be what they are basing the foundation off of, I think it's a nice change for Bobby. I think it's a nice change for the skill players here. And I think you can really get into some of the play action elements if they can have success running the ball, and then you've got a quarterback run game on top of that, and then you get the boot game on top of that with the misdirection and the displacement and the stress you're going to put on the linebackers on the second level. It has potential to be a very fun offense, but it has to start with running the football successfully, and I think that's where you go back to kind of at this point. I know that they have a need at wide receiver. They need to kind of fill out the tight end room, but I'm looking at that offensive line, and I want to feel really good about that 1 through 8 coming into this season, because I think that's where you give Bobby and this offense the chance to be most successful.
27 games played. He averages 5.5 yards per carry when he's running the football, and that includes the sacks as well. So that would be a little bit higher, a little misleading there. And, only 22 games, he's fumbled the ball 7 times in 22 games, and 2 of them came this past season in just 4 games, and 1 of them started. So that might have been a little bit of an issue for him. And the other thing, if we're being picky, which we don't want to start already, but just looking at it, he's only 6'1". So if there's any knock on Malik Willis, it's been the fumbling and his height. But the coaches love him. They want him here. He's got a strong arm. Like Kyle said, mobile, outside the pocket. He can tuck it and run when he needs to. And I know that as a receiver and even as an offensive lineman too, you love that when that quarterback can give you a little bit of extra time to either get open, or if you can't hold a block any longer, this guy can get away.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's something that we've been missing. We didn't want Tua run the ball from all his concussions and all his injuries. So now we got a guy that, the defenses have to pay attention to. A lot of defense knew that Tua was not just going to take off and run the ball, a lot. Whereas this kid, you just don't know. At any given moment, he could get rolling, And I get it, Gries, he's 6'1", but so is Drew Brees.
One of the greatest of all time. If you factor in the size, maybe the greatest. Talking about Drew Brees doing what he did at his height. And I know, Z, you love Drew. That Boilermaker blood, right?
That's right. That's
Boilermakers all day. Who was this guy? Was it Vinny Sutherland? Wasn't that his receiver?
Vinny Sutherland, yeah. That was one of those guys, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Drew Brees at Purdue was just ungodly. If you can even think about that, go back and watch Drew Brees Purdue highlights. But you can't watch Drew Brees Miami Dolphins highlights because they weren't smart enough to bring him in. They brought Dante Culpepper instead. And so that's a long time ago. But it's part of the QB carousel. What'd you say, Kyle? Sorry.
Don't do that. Don't hurt my heart. Here, this is supposed to be a positive show.
We're supposed to be
celebrating. Hey, I was on the team when that all happened.
Yeah, I know. I know you don't want to hear it any more than I do. Gries is out here.
Come on, he's a Boilermaker.
No, he should have been a Dolphin too.
Should have been a Dolphin.
But it does speak to the inconsistency at the position, Kyle, since Dan Marino retired. And, after the Achilles injury, I talk all the time about how I was at Marino's first game back. You get to see his greatness firsthand, but Dan was never really the same after that injury, even though he still was great for a while. And since that Achilles tear and since the end of the line for Dan Marino, it's been a rough go for Miami at quarterback. We don't even have to go there mentioning names and all that. For a while, you thought it'd be Chad Henne or Ryan Tannehill, but, it ended up being with Tua and the big dollars. So they have to hit on one eventually. The good news is they're due, Kyle. They are long overdue.
Well, and the way that you kind of speed that process up of law of averages, if you're going to hit on average and you are hitting below average rate, start swinging the bat more. And that again goes back to people talk about the downside of this is potentially being out on a quarterback in 2027. Gang, this is the same guy that's the GM now that was in Green Bay when they had Aaron freaking Rodgers and drafted Jordan Love in the first round. This is the same guy that had Brett freaking Favre, and they drafted Aaron Rodgers in the first round when it was the right opportunity. So they have the track record that says if it's the right quarterback, ain't nothing going to stop them from making that decision. So you want to be due and have it cash for you, take more swings of the bat, which is why I'm gassed up the way that I am that they did this, because I don't think they overspent relative to recent historical precedent. I think they've protected themselves reasonably well. And I know, if Malik is okay and they draft in the middle of the round, they want to make a splash and go get a guy, cool. But it also comes down to putting the right team around the right player. And we've made this conversation point several times since we've been doing the squads. Go through the list of all the best quarterbacks in the league and ask if they were the top quarterback taken in their draft and where they were drafted in the overall draft order. This obsession with being first overall pick to get this player, it's not necessary. And by and large, all of the best quarterbacks in the league become the best quarterbacks in the league because the system that's around them and the people that are around them to help them develop until they reach that peak, not because we were bad enough and cultivated a losing culture badly enough that we fell into the first overall pick. I just don't buy it. I don't.
Yeah. If you look at it, if you don't have a supporting cast, both offensive and defensively, for that elite quarterback, you're nothing. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. And they went out and they drafted heavy offense, right? And they built that team offensively. Their defense can't stop anybody. And it's sad because you're wasting that talent of a number one overall pick who took it to the Super Bowl. You had a defense then, but now it's been depleted because you spend all your money on receivers and linemen and everything for Joe. And it's getting to be a complete S show there in Cincinnati because of it.
Well, to your point, Z, they're 19-16 in his last 3 years in starts made by Joe Burrow. 19-16.
Yeah. So
it's been a rough couple of years in Cincinnati. Yeah, it has.
And then they've gone through. They should have went through another defensive coordinator this year. They get rid of Lou. Lou goes to Indy and lights it up. So it's not, maybe it's not the coaching. Maybe it's just the personnel.
Trey Hendrickson gone now too from the Bengals.
Yeah. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. They're just letting guys go, and because they don't want to pay them because they got all the money's on offense.
Hendrickson's out there. Crosby gets traded. There's a lot of stuff going on with that position too. You see Jalen Phillips, the deal he's getting, huge money. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Jalen Phillips here. We're talking about a 4-year deal with the Carolina Panthers. What's the number on that, Kyle?
$120
million.
$120 million. How much guaranteed?
I didn't see the guarantees off the top of my head, but I do think the thing that stands out to me with Phillips and the irony of the fact that he went to Carolina, when the Dolphins made the decision to trade Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline, they got a 3rd-round pick, which is 87th overall. And it was kind of controversial at the time because it's like, oh, this is a decision made by not the long-term GM. You should have held on to him. If they were to have held on to Jalen Phillips and he walks in free agency and you sign Malik Willis, you're not getting anything for Jalen Phillips. You're getting nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened with Robert Hunt, right? And Christian Wilkins. And, Robert Hunt leaves in free agency. You didn't proactively get a contract done. He leaves. You end up getting, I think, a 4th-round pick that could have been higher, but there was playtime incentives that impacted that. So you hurt not that you were in a conversation about trading Robert Hunt, but just moving on from contract. You look at some of these teams across the league. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs and trading Trent McDuffie, right? And we're going to move on from a guy going into a 5th-year option because we know we can't keep him. We know we're trying to compete, but the needs of the roster. Think about the Christian Wilkins thing. You went through the Christian Wilkins saga, and he had a hold in throughout the entire training camp before his 5th-year option season. And there were some trade calls that were made, and you never really took it serious. And then he left, and he signed a record-setting contract, and you're like, oh, okay, we're going to game the compensatory pick system, and we'll get a 3rd-round pick. And then he got hurt, and he didn't play 25% of the snaps for the season, and his comp pick fell to a 4th-round pick. So what would you have got for Christian Wilkins if you knew you weren't going to pay him, right? Like, seeing Jalen Phillips go out and get 4 years, $120 million when you knew you weren't going to pay that, right? I think in retrospect, you look at that decision. I applaud that decision because You weren't going to pay him that in the here and now if he was set to hit free agency, if you kept him through the end of the season. You weren't going to put him on a franchise tag, and then you'd be getting nothing for him because you'd be signing Malik Willis.
Thank you, Champ Kelly.
That's right.
I mean, it's just like Baltimore. They traded the dude to the Chargers.
Yep.
And then he left and went somewhere for $100 million.
Yep, with the Commanders.
The command, Washington. I mean, both those DNs, got traded, got some good draft picks out of them, and both of them didn't stay with the team that you got traded for them. You know, I mean, but Baltimore, I think, won in the deal anyways because they, got Crosby instead.
Right.
Yeah, what a pickup for them. That's what they needed. They might literally be like contenders right near the top right now just from that one deal. Meanwhile, for the Dolphins, they re-signed Dulcich, who I know both you guys like him a lot. Kyle, you've mentioned it several times. Alec Ingold's gone. They release him. He's going to go to L.A. with Mike McDaniel reportedly. And what else? I mean, let's get your guys' thoughts. I mean, Ingold, he didn't have a good year, but, man, he was a valuable team leader. And at times in his Dolphins career, a captain, a real leader, but a real good player too, Kyle.
Yeah, I really wish Alec the best. He was a great guy, not just in the locker room and as a leader on the team, on the roster, but in the South Florida community. He did a lot of great things. So I'm thankful to have had a chance to watch him for the last 4 years, and him getting a chance to reconnect with Mike McDaniel. I am certain he's going to not have a hard time picking up the offense and being the piece that he was in Miami for. Maybe he wasn't the most physically domineering fullback, and maybe he didn't have the best road grading blocks, but when he was on, he was really on. He had the flexibility and the football IQ to handle the vast workload of assignments that Mike McDaniel gave him to make the offense work, and he did that. So I'm excited to get him in LA with a chance to see him continue to play some of his best ball with somebody that he very clearly has great chemistry with.
No doubt. And the running game heavy with Mike McDaniel and Jim Harbaugh. So Ingold's going to be a busy guy. That's Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. Jeff Zgonina, former Miami Dolphin. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. Kyle has got Indeed. And then we keep it going with more Miami Dolphins talk. The free agency is heating up around the NFL. What might be next for the Dolphins? We'll give you a rundown. Who's gone, who's in, where are they going, who's coming, what are the rumors, all that still to come here on the show. And then toward the end, we'll just take you around the league because it's been super busy there too. Keep it right here on your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network.
Workplace chaos, deadline staffing up, the inbox is overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, and location. So you're not just sitting around waiting and hoping that the right candidate falls into your lap. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I'm going to tell you about Indeed, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this program will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on the program. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions do apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
There we go. Kyle getting love in the chat room. He is spitting today, guys. He knows his ball without a doubt. It's like Jim Carrey when he did Man on the Moon, right? Kyle's in character this week, and he doesn't have time to breathe, but the kids are starting soccer. You got the littles, man. And I know because my daughter just had surgery, and I've been taking care of my 8-month-old grandson nonstop. And, man, that's a lot of work, and it just continues to be more work. But Kyle putting it in, doing great work, man. We are lucky to have you, one of the best, if not the best in the game. Number 10 channel on the network that is #1 in the sports world, the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, guys, the Tua Tagovailoa out, Malik Willis in, Alec Ingold out, Jake Bailey's leaving. Man, Jalen Phillips with a big deal from Carolina. Minkah Fitzpatrick traded to the Jets. Jets. No, say it ain't so. You know what? I just want to get your thoughts quick on that, Kyle. Anyone in the division, right? And then the Jets get him. I don't know. I mean, I guess it was just that important for the Dolphins to free themselves of that money.
Yeah, I think seeing the Malik Willis domino fall after the fact I know they're trying to work something out with an adjusted contract for Austin Jackson. It sounds like they kind of exhausted some of their obvious release candidates. So it makes you wonder, like, could we have held out and maybe got a better value here? But the more important thing for us was getting the cap space so that when Wednesday rolls around and it's time to close the Willis contract, because they felt that they could do it, they have the space to accommodate it and make it happen. That's kind of what my big brain hindsight kind of 30,000 foot view certainly seems like it feels like to me. Because if you told me that Minkah Fitzpatrick was only going to warrant a 7th round draft choice in compensation, I'd be surprised. And I think if you take that move in isolation, it's probably a little disappointing, right? Like I certainly thought they could have got several rounds better in trade value for Minkah Fitzpatrick from an asset perspective. But if you look at it as a individual part of a larger sum, and that's what was necessary to do the business that got done today with Greg Dulcich and Malik Willis, then so be it. And you strip that $15 million of cash out of your pipeline, and a vast majority of that is going to end up going to Malik Willis.
Z?
Yeah, I mean that's basically when I saw that go through and it was a 7th rounder. That was they were going to cut him, and they were just going to get a draft pick. So whoever really wanted him was going to give up a low round draft pick, just have him so they wouldn't have to get outbid for his services. That's all that was. I mean, it's happened all the time. Ever since I've been in the NFL, that's usually those low round picks. They're trying to get somebody off the books, and they're just moving them.
Interesting to see the movement with the Dolphins. Speaking of movement, Bradley Chubb obviously released, James Daniels, Liam Eichenberg, Tyreek Hill, Alec Ingold, Jason Sanders, Tua Tagovailoa, and Nick Westbrook-Akine. Right now, that leaves unrestricted free agents. And look, Jake Bailey's gone. Larry Borum is gone. Quentin Bell, KJ Britt, Daniel Brunskill, Artie Burns. Most of these names, I'm just going to go Rasul Douglas. Dulcich, they re-signed, which is a good one. Let's see. Anybody else I'm missing here, Kyle? Going through this list really quickly. Darren Waller and Z's favorite QB, Zach Wilson.
That's right.
We also had Cole Strange signed with the Chargers tonight. So he obviously was the guy who was the 4th option at right guard this year when James Daniels went down with a pec injury, and we saw him for 3 snaps all season. And then it was Keon Smith, who I thought was very clearly a tackle who they tried playing at guard, and it went disastrously bad for a game and a half. So then they benched him for Daniel Brunskill in the second half of the Bills game, and Brunskill gave up the pressure that led to the tip pass on the interception on the game-tying drive in the final 3 minutes of the 4th quarter against the Bills in Week 3. And then Cole Strange, who they picked up when James Daniels went on IR starting in Week 4, was your starting right guard. He started the rest of the way for you there at right guard, and he got 2 years, 13. I mean, that's a pretty handsome like that's maybe coming in to start. And, I thought Cole stabilized himself a little bit throughout the course of the last month of the season or so. But I watched him play early in the season. He got a lot of help. It felt like they were turning the center that way a whole bunch and just giving a little extra support. And that's what felt like it was a large part of what was amplifying the struggles that Jonas Savai and I had. And somehow he was the more tenured and longer on the roster player of the 2 starting guards that you had. So my eyeballs popped out a little bit when I saw 13 in 2 years for Cole Strange, because you're certainly paying him like he's going to be a starting guard for you.
Yeah, but you wish that was in Florida. That's 2 years, $6 million in California.
Yeah, that's
after taxes.
The NFL insiders don't do tax adjustments, right?
Oh, so, I know, but players do though.
Yep.
I saw one cat. He took less money to go somewhere with better taxes.
It's smart. It's all measured take-home pay.
Yeah. So I mean, I know I always looked at it. I mean, sometimes I didn't have a choice, but I always looked at cost of living and taxes. When I was a free agent, because then you justify where you're going to go. You'll take less money to go somewhere, better taxes and better living.
Yeah.
What about Greg Dulcich, guys? I know you both have said real good things about him on the show. Former standout at UCLA. He's looking to have a breakout. He seems like someone who might be priming and getting ready to have a breakout year, Z.
Yeah, I'm still hoping for a trade for Cole Kmet. I mean, good tight end. will fill in good for Bobby on offense. But yeah, I know he came on late. And he did some good things. He's a nice target. And I think he'll have good chemistry with Malik. Once they get going and start throwing in OTAs.
Kyle?
I think the thing that stood out the most to Greg was kind of the production with the ball in his hands. These numbers were courtesy of Marcel Louis-Jacques. I'd seen some of them, but not all of them packaged together. Marcel is the beat reporter on ESPN for the Dolphins. Dulcich led all NFL tight ends in average yards after the catch, 7.6. Yards per target, 10.2, and finished third in yards per catch, 12.9. He's the Dolphins' third leading receiver despite spending 2 months of the season on the practice squad and didn't get his first target until week 9. From week 11 to the end of the season, he was 8th amongst all NFL tight ends in receiving yards. So a lot of that was sit routes over top of the ball. They would give him on slide routes where he's getting out into the flat with the play action and get the ball down to him fast if they're going to play us with depth. And I think I really think the boot game and the moving pockets are going to be a big piece of the puzzle here with Malik Willis if you're going to do it right. And having a player who can be the split flow action guy and the slide into the flat guy who has this kind of ability with the ball in his hands is a great piece to have. I don't think he's your unquestioned number one tight end because I think he is more of a pass game profile as a player. But the fact that they got him back really has me excited because I thought he showed some great things and some great hands. And I think the only mistake he really made is he had a catch just sort of the sticks. He tried to get a first down and had a fumble for a turnover at one point last season. But he was a top 100 pick and was a top 100 pick for a reason because he's a great athlete going back to UCLA. And you finally had a chance to see it this year. And I think they have lightning in a bottle with that one. I think he'd be a really good player.
Yeah, no doubt. Good insight from Kyle and Z on Dulcich. It's going to be a lot of fun to see this offense start to take shape under Bobby Slowik. We still don't know if Achan's going to get traded. I don't know if we should sit here and speculate, but, I've seen some rumors about him and what he could bring back in a trade, and I would say no way on the Achan trade. And I kind of think, Malik Willis with Achan and Jalen Waddle, that's pretty solid for Miami with that developing offensive line. And if Patrick Paul can continue to improve the way that he has the whole left side of that offensive line at the center position, obviously they're set. So it's exciting to think about what Bobby Slowik's going to do. He's put the chef's hat on and make it all happen for the Miami Dolphins. But, as I look at what might happen from here, Kyle, and one of the things I'm seeing, the Dolphins, one of 3 teams linked to a pretty good receiver from the 49ers, Kendrick Bourne. He's never been a 1,000-yard receiver, but, man, he has been a nice piece for the teams he's played for. And he's one of the guys the Dolphins have to really hit on someone that they don't spend a ton of money on, and he might be one of the guys who fits that bill.
It came out about an hour ago. I think Bourne's going to Arizona on a 2-year deal for up to 12. But wide receiver, there's seen some buzz on like Romeo Doubs, and I don't think Romeo Doubs from Green Bay. I think he's going to be way out of Miami's price range. The name that I like at wide receiver, if you're going to go with like Bourne has a little bit of field stretching ability, a little bit of a longer body. Not like a big receiver, but just a longer body than some of like the shorter guys that Miami has. Tyquan Thornton, who was with the Chiefs last year, was a second-round pick out of Baylor with the Patriots. Big-time speed guy. I think he can do some of the same things. And if you're looking for he's like a 6'2", speed down the field guy with a little bit of a longer body to go with, Waddle and obviously the kind of twitch and route running that he has. If you're interested in Kendrick Bourne, I would like to think Tyquan Thornton's also going to be on your market. And if it's $6 million per year for Bourne, that's probably $1 million higher than what I would say the Dolphins' budget is. Just kind of, looking at Green Bay's history when John Eric Sullivan was there and spending and looking at their cap situation. Like, I think 2 for 10 or 1 for 4.5 to 5 with incentives or something like that. Like, who can you get for that? I think that's probably the range where if they're going to be prioritizing wide receiver in free agency, that would be the kind of the ceiling that I would be putting the cap on. And they're not really, unfortunately, in a position to, because they're going to have more than half of their salary cap this year is going to be dead money, right? Cap is 301. They were at 76 before Tua, and it sounds like they're going to take 67 on Tua as opposed to June first cut this year. So I'm not a math guy, but I could tell you we're pushing 50%. Like, that's where we're at with the cap this year. So they're not in a position to really get into a what contest for anybody on the market.
Man, it happens fast. Your head starts spinning around like The Exorcist, man. It's a fun time of year, Z.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's the funnest to see these numbers, these crazy numbers, and these guys becoming multimillionaires over and over, and it just shows how great this game really is, in the NFL, and what it's been built up over the years, and it just keeps getting better and better, and it's year round now, which is a great thing for the fans and for us and everybody. So, enjoy the ride.
No doubt. That's Jeff Zgonina. He's been a free agent a time or two. Maybe we'll get a couple of Z's good stories from those free agency years. The best stories from Z's free agency travels throughout the league. We'll get those on the other side. It's your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 podcast network, live on YouTube. Then we upload, you download. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, you name it. And, of course, Roku, over-the-top television as well. Quick break for the YouTubers, full break for everybody else. We'll wrap it up on the other side. All right, there we have it, Z. Give us a couple, even just one of your, maybe the happiest you ever were at this time of the year when and just hear cha-ching coming from everywhere.
Well, first of all, I was always a wave 3 guy, so it was a long wait to get to where I was getting phone calls. So I was always like the tail end of it all, my whole career, which was fine, and didn't bother me because I always found a home somewhere. But like when I came down to Miami, I was going from Miami, then from Miami I was flying to New England. From New England I was flying to Green Bay, and I had just taken a trip like 2 weeks before a week before. About a week before I started those trips, I went to Kansas City because Coach Vermeil was over there, and I was playing for St. Louis at the time. So I went over there first, left there. We had our first child, my daughter, and then on Friday we had the daughter, and then Sunday night or Monday morning, Sunday they came home, and then I left Monday morning to start that free agent trip. So I only went to Miami, and I walked in and met with Coach Wanstead and Rick Spielman, GM, and George Payton, the assistant GM, and Clarence Brooks and Jim Bates and all the coaches, and then Junior walks in and says, "Buddy, we're signing here." And I go, "We are?" "Yeah, buddy, you're signing." Okay, we worked out a deal and I signed. I didn't go to New England. I didn't go to Green Bay. So that was it.
Man, a lot of fun over the years for you, man. And I'm looking at the guys, the Big Ten Co-Defensive Player of the Year, Jeff Zgonina in 1992, 3-time All-Conference, a Super Bowl champion. All those years, all those teams, the Steelers, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Rams, the Raiders, the Colts, Rams again, Dolphins, and the Texans. For those Dolphins teams, Z, 03 to 06, what was it like walking into that locker room and just saying, "Hey, man, I'm going to be on that defense with guys like Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor," which at the time Miami had one of the top defenses in the league?
Yeah, no, it was great. And we had I'm drawing a blank now. We had Pat, and we had Sam Madison, and Patrick Surtain, and our safety was
Marion at night.
Yeah. And, it was just like it was all over the place, and number 90, who was his name? Not Tony Bennett. It was dude who came from Baltimore. I can't remember his name. He was there he was an older guy. We just had a bunch of characters and a bunch of good football players, and we, Larry Chester, Tim Bowens, Debo on the outside, and it was a lot of fun. In the Prince, Goulier, and yeah. So we had some characters and we had some dudes, and it was just fun to be there, and offensively we had Ricky was there, and we had guys over there too in McKnight and God, I can't think of everybody over there, but
Chambers.
It was Chambers, and
Chambers was good. Randy McMichael,
and who was our fullback? I can't remember who our fullback was.
Oh, Rob Conrad.
Oh yeah, Rob
he swam like 14 miles back when his boat sunk. You guys remember that story? I think it was
that story. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. So it was fun times. We just didn't didn't get over the hump. We went 10-6 that one year and missed the playoffs, and then it was downhill from there. Next year we came back and it was just, the Ricky deals and all that. And then Dave, got let go, and then Saban came in and he tried to refix change the whole roster with like most coaches do. And, we didn't get the right quarterback, and, and that was that. And then he went back to college, and I was a free agent. So, they didn't want me back. Cameron didn't want me. So I moved down to Houston, and finished up my career down there for 3 years. So, you never get mad at that. You just keep going about your business, So, like the one year, I'll tell you one funny story. The one year I was out of football for a couple of weeks. I actually went deer hunting up in northern Wisconsin, and on the way back, we hit a deer, and our vehicle got disabled, so we had to wait till the next day to get a tow truck and a rental car. So I jokingly was reading the paper, and I said jokingly to my uncle, I said, I'm probably going to play in Detroit. He's like, what do you mean? I go, well, my buddy just got hurt. It was Monday morning. We were driving back on a Sunday, and got hurt in the game, and they're looking for a D tackle probably. So we got in the tow truck and went all the way back to Chicago, and finally got into service range, because back when cell phones were just cell phones and wasn't really nationwide service. So my phone rings and my agent going, where you been? I've been trying to call you for 4 hours. I go, dude, I've been in a tow truck. He goes, well, Detroit wants to fly you out tonight for a workout tomorrow. They might sign you. I'm like, all right, so get me on a flight. So I took the last flight out of Chicago to Detroit. I get there, don't know who I'm meeting. Finally, I found some limo driver. Goes, hey, are you Jeff? I go, yeah. He goes, I'm taking you to the hotel. I go, all right. I said, what time do I get up in the morning? I don't know. Ask the front desk. I go in there, ask them. They got nothing. So I go to the room. I don't know what I'm doing in the morning. I don't know what time I'm supposed to get up. So I call my mom and dad, because calling from I told them I'm staying at the Holiday Inn here in Dearborn, blah, 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 blah. I was like, all right. So I set my alarm clock for 6 o'clock. I'm going to get up and just wait, because I don't know. And it's like 1 in the morning, right? So 1:30, my phone rings. And I'm like, hello? And it was Chris Polian. I go, you with Detroit? He goes, no, I'm with Indy. I said, that's what I thought. I go, you're with Dad in Indy? And he goes, yeah. He goes, we want to bring you in for a workout tomorrow. I said, well, I'm working out for Detroit. And then Bill gets on the phone and goes, we'll sign you. I go, okay, get me on the first flight out of here. So I never talked to Detroit. I just got on a plane the next morning, fly back to Chicago, get my truck at the airport, and drive down to Indy. My agent's calling me the whole time. Where are you at? You're supposed to be at the work. I said, I'm going with Indy now. He's like, what? I go, yeah. So it was funny, and that was that. It was Indy for it was Peyton Manning's rookie year. So I was down there with him and Marshall Faulk, and then after that season, I went back to St. Louis. So, just jumping around.
Man, the life and times, right, Z? I mean, what a career you put together, man. And I mean, it's just crazy when you think about it. There's a lot of faith. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of belief in God or the universe or the football gods or whoever you're looking to, just knowing that you're going to end up somewhere, right? What's that process like when you're sitting there waiting for the phone to ring and you're really not sure if you're going to get a call and if you're going to play this year?
You just don't think about it. You just, I always said, you know what? I'm going to play. I always thought that, and even in my 18th year in the league at 40 years old, I thought I was going to play. But, I kind of knew the phone wasn't going to ring, but I still always had that outside hope. You just do. And if not, then you figure out something else to do with your life. You can get in a podcast with Gries. That's what you do.
Well, those years coaching too.
While Gries recovers there, I just want to marvel at this 1998 Colts team that had Peyton Manning, Marshall Faulk, and Marvin Harrison on it, and won 3 football games.
Yeah. Well, we exactly right.
That's pretty incredible to look back, seeing what those careers turned into, and seeing those guys there. And
that's the last time Peyton lost like that.
13, yeah.
Yeah, and then they traded Marshall the next year. Like we both went to St. Louis together for Edge, and Edge came in there,
Ended up being a great deal. And go figure, the Colts, the one time they make the right choice, at least up to that time, because you guys remember the Colts were the Cardinals before that. They might have even been below the Cardinals. They were the armpit of the NFL. They moved from Baltimore. Everyone hates the Irsay, group, the owner, Robert Irsay. But they made the right choice, Z. Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, for once, the Colts made the right choice, turned the entire organization around, which, to Kyle's point earlier in the show, that's rare. It's rare that you take a guy number one and he turns the whole organization around. Peyton, one of the few.
Yeah, but again, they had Bill Polian, and what he did in Buffalo, what he did in Carolina. It wasn't like he was just some brand new GM. This guy knew talent. This guy had a great staff working for him behind the scenes, and a lot of those guys have gone on and become general managers, over the years. And he just knew talent. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, he knew talent. I played for him twice, once in Carolina and then once in Indianapolis. And, the guy was unbelievable. That's for sure.
Maybe the most important Hall of Famer coming from that Indianapolis era, because without him, they didn't have that era, and a lot of those guys wouldn't be there. I mean, Harrison and Reggie Wayne, to take Reggie Wayne, you know what I mean? To have the guts to trade the best running back in the league and Marshall Faulk, and you get a haul for that includes Edgerrin James, who ends up being just about as good, maybe not quite as good as Marshall Faulk, but damn close, and certainly worth the trade, And so that's what this time of year can do for an organization. Kyle, how you feeling about everything overall, Kyle? Everything the Dolphins have done up to this point and are doing at this time. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we're taking some necessary steps with the salary cap management and offloading contracts. And I kind of expected to see an effort to continue to allocate more draft picks just because of how much they've talked about it. Like, that's the thing for me, is listening to the head coach and the GM talk. Every time they talk, they have very consistent messaging. They're bought in on what path they want to take. That's very important. But then also with some of the interviews that these guys do and things that they talk about, right? Talking about it all starts with it's the first thing John Eric Sullivan says. It all starts with the quarterback, right? It doesn't matter until you have the quarterback. And he talked about his free agency philosophy and says, we're not going to check boxes to look busy, but if we think we see a difference maker, we're going to, try to acquire difference makers in free agency. They did both of those things with the Malik Willis signing. So it's that affirmation of like the core principles that they believe in, and to see it. And, it's obviously still so early in its infancy with the roster teardown that they're in the midst of, and trying to get, more draft capital to work with to really build through the draft, and not just kind of ho-hum your way through your 7 scheduled picks every single year. So I'm interested to see what comes of that piece of this puzzle. But the fact that we're offloading talent and stripping down the cash, and still also had the wherewithal and the self-awareness of, hey, we're probably not going to get a great swing at a quarterback this year in the draft, because there's really one guy at the top perceived versus everybody else. We've got a connection with this guy. We've seen him work. We believe in him. And even if it doesn't work out, the cost is such that it's not going to ruin the entire build to do so. And we're prepared to continue to take swings. I appreciate the fact that they are walking the walk that they talked when they got hired and took the jobs.
Z, I mean, that's right on point, Kyle. Z?
Yeah, no, I said it earlier. I think that signing with the quarterback was probably the best thing that they've done so far, because of it's not a big hit to the cap and everything. It just exit out of it, and then you still have the opportunity to keep building that room up, this year and next year, if you so to choose. And if it does strike, now you got something to cook with, because you really don't have to pay him again until 2 more years, 3 more years from now, 4 more years from now, after 3 after this year. So
3 after this year. And, ever since they made the move to trade Jalen Phillips, who just got a huge deal from Carolina, Kyle made the point earlier, they got something for him, and not just something, a top 100 pick. And, in the past, maybe they might have let him go for nothing. So Champ Kelly got it kicked off there. They get under the cap by releasing Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. They did that. They were able to do it. They're going to eat the money on Tua. They've traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've released Alec Ingold. Lots of moves being made by the Dolphins. Kyle, what's your grade for the front office since the point when they fired Chris Grier?
I'd say B+. Really, my only complaint is the compensation that came from the Minkah thing, right? I mean, I think that's one where I think that player as a standalone is probably a 4 or 5, and you got a 7, right? But again, if you tie it into the bigger picture of what assuming that's what it was, that led to them taking the compensation that they did, and they felt that they were up against that kind of crunch. I really like the vision that we're undertaking, and that they're talking about how it's going to take a while. But again, if you believe in what you're saying and then your actions follow suit, and you and your head coach and the people who brought you in all understand the process that it's going to take, and you hold to it, it might take a little bit of time, but generally speaking, good things usually happen instead of trying to take shortcuts. And I don't look at signing Malik Willis as a shortcut when I consider what their quarterback philosophy as a whole is based off what they've told us. So that's my big critique, if you will, is it's like, man, I really wish we'd have had better trade value for Minkah, but like, I don't look at any of the players that they moved on from and feel like they were inappropriate players to move on from. Maybe I would have handled the Tua contract differently and strung it out. If they just want it to be done and they want to get him out of the building, like whatever, that's neither here nor there. So that's kind of where I'm at with what they've done thus far.
$99 million, the record cap hit from Tua Z. And I mean, there's no way around that. You just got to go through it. It's like a herd of buffalo, right? Buffalo are the only animal that actually sees a storm coming, and they'll walk right through it. Every other group of animals tries to run away from it, but buffaloes go right through that storm and come out quicker on the other side. And that's what the Dolphins have to do. Just go right into it and go through it. There's no other way.
Yeah. Thanks, Ranger Jim. I appreciate that.
I mean, you're a hunter, Z. I figured you might appreciate that. You're a rodeo guy. Come on.
Well, okay, whatever. I give him a B. I think the right move was to rip the Band-Aid off and take the big hit right now. It sets you up for the future, especially the cap going up this year so much. So I mean, I was happy with that. The one thing was, I saw the list today of the compensatory picks, and we're not on it. Again, that's something the front office has got to somehow we got to keep our players until the end just to get some compensatory picks. Because those add up big. You look at the teams that always have the records, and a lot of them, that's how they build their rosters, and get more picks. The easy way to get more picks. So that's something, that hopefully that we stride over the next couple of years, that we start building that up a little bit.
All right, guys, final thoughts on the show today. I guess my final thought is we knew the release of Tua was coming. A little bit mildly surprised that they were able to get Malik Willis for what they got him for. I wonder how much he factored in coming to play with Sully and half, as he calls them. But the Dolphins' new regime got their guy, and that's my final thought. You have to be happy with that. If they impress the committee enough to get the jobs to come in and to sell Stephen Ross on this new regime change, then to go out and get their guy and to keep, like Kyle said, to walk the walk that they talked when they got here. That's a great job by them so far. And obviously keep your eyes open, because you'll see another Kyle Krabs emergency podcast coming your way soon. Kyle, what's your final thought today, and what else do you have coming everybody's way on the channel?
I'm at the mercy of the news headlines. So whenever news happens, you will see me. And that's the plan for this week. As far as my final thought, it's a relationships business, right? And I know Jeremy Fowler from ESPN talked about how Willis and his destination somewhere where he could trust the people that were there with his career and the trajectory that they're on. And that was something that went into consideration for this. So I know we kind of all chuckle about these guys all coming from Green Bay, but if you're going to build something great, you got to have everybody rowing in the same direction. And I think that's the thing that I'm most encouraged by with this initial nucleus that they've set in place. But based on the contract, it's no guarantees, right? Like, you got to go out and perform. And that goes for everybody that we've hired. And that's what, starting in 2026, the process becomes, is evaluating the job that everybody does to figure out what needs to change to be better.
Z?
Yeah, no, I'm just looking forward to see the next move that the Dolphins make. I think they started off great so far in free agency, and just now they're going to start getting some good core players, I think. Because we don't have that much money left, so we got some good value players, and I can't wait to see who they've studied and who they've written up and who they got next in line. It's going to be interesting times.
Going to be a lot of fun. Don't blink. As they say, do not blink. League-wide, not just the Dolphins. And we'll be back Wednesday with another episode of your Dolphin Squad Show. Until then, keep on watching, keep on listening to Kyle Krabs, the best in the biz, on the number 10 channel, on the #1 sports podcast network in the world. As he said, he's at the mercy of the news cycle. So we're just hoping some big moves still to come for the Miami Dolphins. It's good for business, their business, our business, everybody's business. Thank you so much for being here again. Until next time, keep your game tight and your mind right, and fins up. Some real hope for the Miami Dolphins organization now. The fans feeling good about those moves. We'll be back on Wednesday with another episode. Thanks again.